जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। ओ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. So, welcome to today's morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, where we are discussing Canto 6, Chapter 9, entitled The Appearance of the Demon Vritra Sura. We are starting this chapter with text number 1. Kindly repeat. Shri Shuka Uvacha Tasyasan Vishwarupasya Shiramsi Trini Bharata Somapitham Surapitham Annadam Iti Shushuma. Shri Shuka Uvacha तस्यासन विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासन विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासन विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासन विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासं विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासन विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् इति शुश्रुमा. माताजी's. श्रीशुक उवाच तस्यासं विश्वरूपस्य शिरांसि त्रीणि भारत सोमपीतं सुरापीतं अन्नादम् iti shushruма. Right? We'll Word to word meaning. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Tasya, of him, Asan, there were, Vishwarupasya, of Vishwarupa, the priest of the demigods, Shiramsi, heads, Trini, three, Bharata, O Maharaj Parikshit, Somapitam, used for drinking the beverage Soma, Surapitam, used for drinking wine, Anna Adam, used for eating, Iti, thus, Shushruma, I have heard by the Parampara system. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Sri Shukdev Goswami continued, Vishwarupa, who was engaged as a priest of the demigods, had three heads. He used one to drink the beverage Somarasa, another to drink wine, and the third to eat food. O King Parikshit, thus I have heard from authorities. Purport. One cannot directly perceive the kingdom of heaven, its king and other inhabitants, or how they perform their various engagements, for no one can go to the heavenly planets. Although modern scientists have invented many powerful space vehicles, they cannot go even to the moon. What to speak of other planets? By direct experience, one cannot learn anything beyond the range of human perception. One must hear from authorities. Therefore, Shukdev Goswami, a great personality, said, what I am describing to you, O king, is what I have heard from authoritative sources. This is the Vedic system. The Vedic knowledge is called Shruti because it must be received by being heard from authorities. It is beyond the realm of our false experimental knowledge. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshattarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, very bewildering words. Somebody having three heads, right? And if some guest were to walk into our Jai Shri Shadavandan Bhiri Bhagavan ki Jai, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki Jai. So, three heads drinking, one drinking somaras, one drinking wine, and third eating food. If some new guest were to walk into this classroom, they would also be thinking what these people are drinking before the class, that they are reading all this stuff, right? So, yeah, so we'll try to discuss today a broad overview of the Puranic history of this whole episode. And two, we'll also try to address this very specific aspect Prabhupada is talking about, Shushruma, hearing from the Parampara system, what it means, right? And specifically some insights about this particular pastime in the bigger context of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So, many of us, we know this pastime, Twashta, his son Vishwarupa, and that whole Chitraketu converting into the Vitrasura demon. Yeah, we know some of these details. It's interesting to know the background of the personalities to really appreciate the pastime, right? And some very interesting things I discovered during the course of this research for this pastime. So first is Twashta himself, right? Now, most of us, we just, for him is just one name, right? But did we hear about him anywhere before in Bhagavatam? Well, we did. Yes, in the genealogy of the progeny of the daughters of Daksha, that particular chapter ends with description of Twashta, right? But Twashta, he is not just an ordinary person, he is in the category of the Vishwakarmas. Vishwakarma is not just one person, they are these different heavenly designers, architects, right? And that's why if you remember when we discussed Prithu Maharaj's episode, the coronation of Prithu Maharaj, there a particular verse comes where how different devatas they came and gave gifts to Prithu Maharaj. It says, Twashta Rupascharya Ratham. So a very extraordinary chariot was given by Twashta. So because he was this designer, right? So Prabhupada, there he translates Twashta as the demigod Vishwakarma, indicating that he was holding that post of this heavenly designer that time. So it says that the demigod Vishwakarma presented him with a very beautiful chariot, right? So this genealogy of Twashta we discuss in the 6th chapter. So somewhere in text number 38 onwards, if you see, I'll just quickly read some of this. It says, now please hear from me. I describe the descendants of Aditi in chronological order. So Twashta is actually the son of Kashyapa and Aditi. In this dynasty, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan descended by his plenary expansion. The names of the sons of Aditi are as follows: Vivaswan, Aryama, Pusha, Twashta, Savita, and so on. Like there's a few other names. So Twashta, he is the descendant of Kashyapa and Aditi. Then an interesting connection, which I'll explain later. Then he says, next verse says, Samya, the wife of Vivaswan, the sun god, gave birth to the Manu named Shraddha Deva. And the same fortunate wife also gave birth to two twins, Yamaraja and river Yamuna. Then Yami, while wandering on the earth in the form of a mare, gave birth to the Ashwini Kumaras. Then Chaya, another wife of the sun god, begot two sons named Shaneshwara and Shavarni Manu, and one daughter, Tapati, who married Samvarna, and so on. And then he describes how Twashta had one son named Vishwarupa, and although he was the son of a demon, he was accepted as a master of the demigods because the demigods offended Brihaspati. And Parikshit Maharaj picks up that line and says, oh, what? The demigods, they offended Brihaspati, who's their own guru. So please tell me about it. And then the whole pastime begins, right? So we know that, so Twashta, the Markandeya Purana gives a small twist to this story. It says that Twashta, along with his two sons, Sannivesha and Vishwarupa, also had one daughter named Sharanyu, also referred to as Samya, who eventually married the sun god Vivaswan. Now, because the sun god, because of his very, very intense heat, she could not handle the heat of the sun god. So constantly she was, feeling disturbed by his heat, and she could not bear the heat, and she was always going away from him. So sun god became so offended, hey, you are my wife and you're not with me, and he curses that your next born children will be cursed. And consequently were born Yamaraj and Yamuna, Yamuna Devi, the river, right? And seeing that, oh, my husband is too temperamental, I can't handle his heat. So Samya, what she does, she creates her replica, a woman who looks exactly like her, and her name is Chaya. So she hands over, okay, now you stay in this house and I'm going to go do tapasya so that I can increase my own power by which I can handle the tejas of the Surya. So she comes to earth, becomes a horse, a mare, and she is doing tapasya in the forest. So meanwhile, Chaya, who looked exactly like Samya, she perfectly served Surya, and she even begot two children in him. One of them is our famous Shanidev, right? And but then Surya noticed something interesting. Chaya was dealing with Shanidev very nicely, like a very loving mother, but towards Yamaraj, she was very cruel and hard-hearted, almost stepmotherly treatment. So Surya felt, hey, something is not right here. So then he questions Chaya and she admits, oh, actually, I'm not your wife. I'm just a replica, Chaya. Your wife has, she's gone into the forest, right? So then Surya understood the problem. Oh, my wife is not able to handle my Tejas. So he goes to Twashta and he says, can you reduce my intensity a little bit? But energy cannot be destroyed. It only has to be transformed from one form to another form. So Twashta, he takes all the energy of Surya and makes a lot of celestial weapons out of it, including the celebrated axe of Brihaspati. Brihaspati has an axe, which later on Lord Rama gets it, and so on, like that. So he made a lot of weapons, and then Surya, searching for his wife, he goes again. He converts into a form of a horse, and then he sees his wife there, and consequently unites with his wife, and thus are born the celestial Ashwini Kumaras, who are also going to make an appearance later on in this pastime. So if you see, these are all connected. It's not some random personalities are not just thrown into the mix, but this is all a connected series. So if you understand the historical, the Puranic history of these personalities, you will see that it's not just some random events happening here and there. Because we don't know the history of Ashwini Kumaras, we don't know the history of Twashta. For us, these are just a bunch of names, right? But when you understand that, it'll increase our shraddha towards or our conviction. Oh yes, must be something historically accurate, right? So while researching about this topic, I found one very interesting reference from a book by one German scholar named Alexander Jacob. He wrote one book called as Atman, the Reconstruction of the Solar Cosmology of the Indo-Europeans. Fancy name, but one interesting point in that book. He says that in the Germanic traditions, the history of the Germanic descendants, they have a, a character named Tuisto, who happened to be grandfather of another personality named Ymir. This Ymir happens to be their equivalent of the god of death. And he also had a brother named Manus, who eventually became the source of the name man from the Latin and it is said that this Manus happens to be the progenitor of the Germanic tribes later on. They were like three main, like their genealogy, their entire genealogy came from this person named Manus. So this Tuisto, through linguistic analysis, this particular Alexander Jacob, he concludes that this Tuisto could be, because it's an academic book, they don't commit anything. They give maybe, could be this Twashta, because Twashta is the grandfather of Yama. Because Twashta's daughter, Samya, married Vivaswan, and Vivaswan's son is Yama. So that makes Twashta the grandfather of Yamaraj. So he said, and also the other son of Vivaswan is Vivaswan Manave Praha. So Manu, Shraddadeva Manu, who was spoken about in the previous chapter. So it seems like there is some connection between, so these stories are not just limited to the Indo-Gangetic plains or only the Vedic. These are some stories that Indians made up, right? Because back then people had a lot of free time, so they thought of speculating their own stories. It's not like that. These are accurate historical records which can be cross-referenced through different world cultures also. Like in this case, these Germanic traditions. So Twashta, apart from all this, he also had some issues with Indra right from the beginning. Because Twashta, the Vishwakarma, his another role was to protect the Somarasa of the heavenly abode. So Somaras, it's not that everybody has access to Somaras in the heavenly abode. Only the qualified people would get it. And Indra always wanted this Somaras. So what he would do, he would regularly steal it. And that made Twashta very upset. He said, this Indra needs to be taught a lesson. So he always had this enmity towards Indra. So he thought, let me beget a child who can subdue Indra. And therefore, despite being a Sura, he marries an Asura named Rachana, whose another name is Virochana. If you remember, Virochana is the daughter of Prahlad Maharaj. Right? See, everything, all the storylines are connected here. It's like perfect historical connection you will see here. Right? And he married, so even though he's a Sura and a Brahmanic Sura, he married Rachana and he begot Vishwarupa purely for the purpose of killing Indra. Right? So that enmity towards Indra was there right from the beginning. Right? So who was this Vishwarupa now? Vishwarupa also had a specific role. He was like how Twashta was the caretaker of Somaras. Vishwarupa was the caretaker of all the cattle, the cows. And Indra would also steal that. And Vishwarupa also had some, enmity towards our Indra. And Vishwarupa, as this verse also describes, he had these three heads: Somapita, Surapita, and Annada. So with one head, he was drinking Somaras because his father has the factory of Somaras, right? So easy access for him. So like the Devatas, he was drinking Somaras. Like the demons, he was drinking Sura, the wine, liquor. And like the humans, he was also eating Anna, because humans, they sustain through food. The Asuras sustain through alcohol. And the Devas, they sustain through Somaras. So it seems like he had the combined characteristics of the Suras, Asuras, and the Manavas, the humans, right? Now, there are again different versions of how Vishwarupa interacted with Indra. One version of the Puranas say that Twashta actually hatched this whole plan in the background. He said he influences our Vishwarupa says, hey, you deceptively go and become the priest of the Devas and you eventually destroy Indra. So one version of the Purana says that he was sent specifically to become the priest of the Devas. The Mahabharata has a slightly different version of this story. It says that seeing the three heads, so he had the combined power of Suras, Asuras, and the humans. And he was doing intense, and also it is said that with one head, he would drink. With other head, he would observe the world around him. And with the third head, he was constantly reading the Vedas. And because of that intense austerity and the Vedic tapobal, the tejas that he was acquiring, and elsewhere also mentioned that in the Devi Bhagavat, it is mentioned that he was standing upside down and doing, austerities. Now, for him to do Shirshasana is very easy because he has three heads. So the tripod is already ready for him, right? But because of that, he was continuously staying in the Shirshasana and doing intense austerities. So whenever anybody would do intense austerities, who would get insecure? Indra. So what Indra does, he immediately sends a lot of apsaras to disturb him, but he would not get disturbed. So finally Indra thinks, so now I have to take the matters in my own hand, and Indra kills Vishwarupa. And just to make sure that he's actually dead, he finds a carpenter nearby. This is the version from Markandeya Puran. He finds a carpenter nearby and he says, please cut off his heads. I just want to make sure that he's really dead. And when his heads are cut off, those respective birds come out, which you will read later on in this chapter, right? So that bird and all this cutting off heads is the common theme there, right? So you'll see like that, Bhagavatam has one version. Our Markandeya Puran has one version. Devi Bhagavatam has little more details. So the same stories seem to be having different versions, and sometimes people may get confused. Which version should be right? Right? Like imagine if somebody comes and asks, when was GEV made? One devotee says, okay, it was made in 2003. Other person says, no, it was made in 2010. Other person will say, oh, GEV was never made. Right? So all three versions, how can all three be true? Because we are conditioned by this history, and Vitrasur Upakyan story also has different version. In one version, this is a version that comes in a Sattvic Puran like Padma Puran. Padma Puran says Hiranyaksha, after he was killed, our Diti was feeling very upset that, oh, because just to protect Indra, Vishnu always kills my children. What is this? So she going to very, so when the wife is upset, husband has to immediately do something. So what he does, okay, don't worry, I will give you one more child, and his name is Bala. But Indra, seeing that, oh, look, last time Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, they created so much problem. If this fellow's name itself is Bala, right? If I don't deal with him immediately, so he's going to create problems for me later on. So even before the child could grow up, Indra comes and kills this boy, Bala. And now Kashyapa gets really upset. What does this Indra think of himself? Right? So I will create a demon who will kill Indra. And thus he starts a yagya. And Kashyapa brings out a great demon. And as soon as this demon is born, the demon bows down to Kashyapa, says, oh, my dear father, please tell me what is a task that you have for me. So you see the storyline, right? It's not Twashta, but it's Kashyapa who gave birth to Vritrasur, right? It is said that he had the black color bodied and yellow color eyes that was born from the fire. The Asura was clad in the hide of an antelope with sword in his hands, opening his mouth from which two huge tusks protruded. He was very wide and shining with radiance and cried out in thunder, "O great sage, please order me. What am I to do?" From the Markandeya Puran. Sorry, from the Padma Puran. Right? So then he says, go kill Indra. But here is where the story takes a different twist. Hearing that this Kashyapa created this, and he knew Kashyapa's tapobal, and if he creates something, it has to be powerful. Because Kashyapa created the whole progeny, Indra immediately calls the Saptarishis and says, hey, you people you are all sadhus. Everybody listens to you. Why don't you go and negotiate with Vritrasur and come to a peace deal? Right? Trick him into peace and I will deal with him later. So then the Saptarishis go and say, yo, they start glorifying Vritrasur. Oh, you are the mightiest of the mightiest. Only a fool would have enmity with you. Everybody wants you as their best friend and their ally. Right? So they request him, give up this enmity with Indra and become, a peaceful ally with him. And if you do so, Indra is ready to share half of his kingdom with you. Dhritarashtra thinks, oh, this is a good deal. I don't have to fight and I'm getting the kingdom. But he doubts Indra's, the intentions. He says, but what if Indra cheats me later on? Oh, no, don't wait. If Indra cheats you, he said, he will personally take up all the sin he collected from the Brahma Hatya of Vishwarupa earlier. If you remember, he killed already Vishwarupa, right? So he's personally going to take the sin of killing a Brahmana, the Brahma Hatya that he had done. He will accept that the sinful reactions. And Dhritarashtra understands this is like a very serious bargain. To accept that the Brahma Hatya reactions is like very, very intense. So Dhritarashtra agrees. So he goes to heaven. Now he is happily living in heaven. Right? And Indra is constantly noticing his moves to make his move. And he was happily one day walking in the Nandankanan gardens. So Indra says, hey, look, his Vritrasura is happily enjoying. He's not suspecting our ill motives. Then he calls Rambha, his most beautiful Apsara. Why don't you entice him? Right? So Rambha goes and she says, okay, oh, you look so strong and handsome. What are you doing in these gardens? So immediately he is mesmerized by the beauty of Rambha, and he falls for her, and he starts begging her, "Can you please marry me? Please, I want a beautiful wife like you," etc., etc. So Rambha says, "Okay, I will agree to your proposal only under one condition. Whatever I say, you will do. You will never, this is a standard condition. Many pastimes in Bhagavatam also you will read like that." So then he says, "Okay, fine, I will agree to you." Right? So then what Rambha does, she marries with him, and during the amorous play, she forces him to drink lot of liquor, and consequently Vritrasur becomes very intoxicated and he falls flat. And that, taking that opportunity, Indra goes and kills Vritrasur, and also accepts the sin of that Brahmahatya. Right? Nice story, na? Now, when you read this story from Padma Puran, it is not even from some Agni Puran or Vayu Puran or Shiva Puran. Padma Puran is considered one of the Sattvic Puranas, right? Padma Puran, Vishnu Puran, and Bhagavad Puran, right? So when you come across such discrepancy in historical descriptions, naturally you will come to a conclusion that these are all made up stories. Each person writes their own version of the story, right? And if you read any modern philosopher, scholars book, any Indologist, Vedic scholars books, they usually dismiss these are all just fictitious myths, stories that are written for some agenda, right? But this is the mistake that many times, even as devotees, many times we don't understand the significance and the relevance of these Puranic stories. See, broadly, if you see the Vedic texts, there are two genres of storybooks. What are the two kinds of storybooks we read? Story classifications we read? No, I mean like from the Vedic perspective. Two classes of books that deal with pastimes. Puranas and Itihasas, right? Now, if both are pastimes, why do we classify them to two separate books? Itihasas are meant to give accurate historical chronological events, almost like a history book. But it's not like a boring history book, because itihasas are also meant to give some important life lessons and transform the heart of the reader, not just bombard them with information and dates and like that. Puranas, on the other hand, are different from itihasas. Puranas are meant to be philosophical books, not just chronological historical books. And therefore, Puranas sometimes do not maintain historical and chronological accuracy. And that is why sometimes in Bhagavatam, for example, you will see from Raktavaraha to Shvetavaraha, two pastimes are mixed. Right? Sometimes the storyline also may change compared to what you are reading in other episodes. Right? So this can be a very challenging concept to understand, because when you are reading Bhagavatam, sometimes people may question, am I reading accurate history or a convenient version of history? Like if you think about it, this is a very convenient version. Here, Indra, Rambha, all soap opera story is going on here. Some Bollywood story is going on here. But Bhagavatam version is very clean, pure, censored version. Right? So is Bhagavatam present version of history? So the point of reading Puranas is not for historical accuracy, but to develop philosophical maturity. This is a very important point, because every Purana has a particular mood. And more than understanding the historical information given in that book, the idea is to develop the vision of the speaker, the mood of the author or the speaker who's narrating that pastime, and what is the mood with which he is presenting that episode, so that what is the final worldview that he wants us, the readers, to develop, right? And that is why we know the three pramanas, right? Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda. And Shabda is the Vedas. And if you see Shabda Praman also, the same Veda is presenting three different versions of the same story. So which one are you to believe? Right? So is it that Shabda Praman is also not accurate? Then is there a Praman higher than Shabda Praman? Yes, there is. So Chaitanya Charitamrita explains when in the Kaviraj Goswami, while describing the entire Nityananda Prabhu's pastime, he describes how Nityananda Prabhu, fifth chapter, Adi Lila, how he's the, the Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Shivodaksha Vishnu, all the five forms, and then Antasesh. And after describing all that, actually, if you read that entire pastime, all the pramanas that Kaviraj Goswami quotes are how Balaram is Karnodaksha, Vishnu, Shivodaksha, all the three Purushavataras, he is a Shesha, etc., etc. He gives all the references quoting how Balaram is that. And after 120 verses glorifying Balaram, in one verse, he says that Balaram is Nityananda Prabhu, therefore, Nityananda Prabhu, Supreme Personality of Godhead. No Shastric Praman for that. Then he quotes one very important verse. He says, अथ एव भक्तेर वाक्यमानि सत्यकरी सकल संभावते येते अवतारे. He says, अथ एव, otherwise, bhaktera vakyamani. He says, but I accept it as truth because it has been said by devotees. Since he is the source of all incarnations, everything is possible in him. So he's quoting a fourth praman called as Bhakta Praman, which is more accurate than Pratyaksha Praman, Anumana Praman, and even Shabda Praman. Because for us to get that Shabda Praman, the Bhakta Praman is very important. And this is a little tricky zone now we are entering into, because yes, the Sadhu Praman is very, very important, because it's only through the words of the Sadhus, even to understand the Vedas, you have to get the knowledge in the Parampara. Like Prabhupada also writes in this purport. This is the Vedic system. The Vedic knowledge is called Shruti because it is to be received by being heard from authorities. It is beyond the realm of false experimental knowledge. Right? When it is heard from authorities means it is finally coming down through some sadhus, through some bhaktas. So this Bhakta Praman is very, very important, because the Bhakta Praman involves not just some knowledge, but a particular mood that they are trying to convey. So when you are reading this particular episode from Srimad Bhagavatam, the idea is to not get stuck about who is this three-headed person, can three heads be there? If he's having three heads, how can he have three different diet plans from each head, right? So don't get stuck with these details, but finally, this entire pastime is leading up to the whole episode of Vritrasur, right? And what is so special about the Vritrasur? The Vritrasur pastime is finally going to conclude to those four glorious prayers that Vritrasur is going to make, which is the essence of entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Vallabhacharya, he compares those four prayers to be the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. And our Vaishnavacharyas, Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas, they do not see any difference between Vritrasur's prayers and the Gopis' prayers in Gopi Geet. Right? And that is the mood of Bhagavatam that we need to capture from this entire pastime. Right? In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a very nice narration which really caught my attention. We were recently reading somewhere, and so we know the pastime. Gopakumar is going through different lokas. He spends a lot of time in Vaikuntha also, but somehow he feels something is missing. So Narad Muni meets him all along the way. Only character who keeps meeting him in multiple places is Narad Muni. And then finally, from Vaikuntha, he goes to Dwarakapuri. And there in Dwaraka, he meets everyone, including Uddhava. Then, at one point, Uddhava invites Gopakumar, you come and stay in my palace. And there, in the closed circuit of Uddhava and Gopakumar, Narad Muni enters and he says, look, Gopakumar, I met you in many places, but I was always hesitant to reveal to you something. Because what happened was Gopakumar, wherever he travels, he's amazed to see, oh my Lord, oh beautiful, but I'm missing something about the Lord. He sees the Lord of Vaikuntha, but still he's very happy and joyful. But in Vaikuntha also he experiences Kuntha, some misery, because something is missing in the Lord of Vaikuntha. And then he tells him, look, this is a secret I didn't reveal to you in Vaikuntha, because what I'm about to tell you is the most confidential essence of this creation. In fact, only nobody was qualified to even hear this in Vaikuntha, but because now you are in the presence of Uddhava, I'm telling you this secret. Because what is so special about Uddhava among all the Dwaraka Vasis? He's the only person who met the gopis of Vrindavan. And then he reveals, actually, beyond this realm of Vaikuntha, there is the eternal abode called as the Purushottam Kshetra, where the Lord is residing as Jagannath with his sister Subhadra and his brother Balabhadra. That abode is actually a blend of both Dwaraka. It is Krishna in Dwaraka mood, but living in Vrindavan. So if you want the best of both Dwaraka, the opulence of Dwaraka and the sweetness of Vrindavan, go to Jagannath Puri. But why even go there? I see your heart is worshipping Gopal. And why don't you chant the Gopal mantra your guru gave you and go directly to Mathura, the spiritual Mathura. And there, what makes this Mathura Dham so special? Because all the devotees residing there, they have one very important quality. And please listen to this attentively, because we are all aspiring to go to. What is that one most important quality that will take us to Goloka? Sorry? Laulya. What creates that Laulya? Let's see who can guess. Let's see who is ready to go to Goloka. Sorry? Selflessness for Krishna. Please enter into the mood of Mahaprabhu. Every morning we recite his prayers. In his prayers is the answer hidden. Huh? What is that mood? Sorry, Prabhu? Madhurya. Ragatmika mood. Okay, humility. Again, yeah, you're a little close, but even that humility is captured through this one word. Yes, Prabhuji is ready to go to Goloka. He said the word dainya. The dainya is not just humility, it's meekness. To think you are utterly disqualified. So when Krishna left the gopis in the middle of the Rasa Leela, the gopis felt we are completely useless. We are unqualified for Krishna's mercy. And in that mood, they sing the Gopi Gita in the Viraha Bhav. And that qualified them to access Krishna. And it is that mood of dainya, Narad Muni says in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it is that dainya which leads to prema. And that prema, when it manifests, it leads to increase in dainya. And when the dainya comes, it leads to more prema. He says they both become like the cause and effect for each other. And to develop that prema and dainya, he says, you should do dhyana and gana of the Vrindavan Leelas. When you do dhyan and gan, when you meditate on Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and constantly sing Krishna's Vrindavan Leelas, then you will develop that mood of dainya. And that will bring about that prema. Right? And what is the internal mood? At that state, you will feel I am utterly unqualified, because even in Vaikuntha, some level that, I deserve the audience with the Lord of Vaikuntha, with the Vaikunthanatha, right? My prayers are being heard. That mood is there. But to develop that prema, one should feel you're utterly unqualified. Or in other words, the moment you think that bhakti is working for you in your life, you are not experiencing bhakti. But the moment you think bhakti is not working in my life, I think I'm utterly unqualified for bhakti also, then bhakti is working in your life. Right? But then sometimes you may not be executing bhakti properly, and then also bhakti may not work in your life. Right? So both ways it can happen. But one thing is for sure, the moment you think, yes, I am making good advancement in my devotional life, then you are not making any advancement. The moment you think you are utterly unqualified, so the secret for bhakti to work is for bhakti to not work in your life. Then you are making tremendous advancement in your spiritual. Then you will become completely helpless. And in that state, you will be able to attract. And in that mood, that prayer, Ashishya Pataratham. So, Krishna, whether you embrace me or you trample upon me, Mat Prananathastu. You are my Prananatha. You are the master of my life. That is a prayer that Radharani personally makes, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeats. And exactly that same mood, Vitrasur is going to say very soon, Aham Hare Tava Padaika Mulo Dasanudaso Gnitasmi Bhuyaha Manasmrite Ashupate Gunamste Gnitavak Karma Karotu Kaya. Ashupate, what does Ashu means? My prana. So the Prananatha and Ashupate are the same word. So the mood in which Vritrasur is going to pray in this pastime, and the mood in which Radharani always prays, or she prayed in the Viraha Bhav in the Gopi Gita, they are exactly the same. So the whole point is Sukadeva Goswami is using this Vritrasur Vrittanta to reveal to us the inner mood of dainya that one needs to develop to access the world of Krishna Prema and enter into the Golok Dham. So this is the vision that we need to develop. So don't get stuck over whose son is Vritrasur. Markandeya Puran, Padma Puran says he's son of Kashyapa. Bhagavad says he's born out of Twashta. And did Indra kill Vishwarupa before he got the Vajrayudha or after the Vajrayudha? Right? Don't get stuck in the details. Sukadeva Goswami has narrated this pastime, building up that mood so that you can appreciate better and absorb, do dhyana and gana of Vritrasur's prayers. So don't get stuck in these stumbling blocks, because Vyasa very expertly uses these details to distract the attention of the Gyanis and the scholars, so that they get stuck with these. These are like the big speed breakers, right? If you put any kind of a small technicality, these scholars will get stuck over the technicality and they will shield themselves from accessing the sweetness of this Bhagavad, of this Vritrasur Lila. So don't get stuck over these details. The whole pastime is now going to build up to one of the most amazing prayers you'll ever read anywhere in the creation. Those are Vritrasur's prayers, right? So the point again is, in summary, that when Prabhupada writes here that this Shruti has to be received from authorities, meaning it has to be received according to the mood of the authorities. So when you're reading Bhagavatam, it's not just about memorizing the details and the technicalities of Bhagavatam, but try to enter into the mood of Sukadeva Goswami and what is a mood with which he is narrating Bhagavatam. Then you will be able to relish Bhagavatam and derive the benefit of Bhagavatam. Because the medicine has to be taken according to the way the physician has given it. And that way is the mood that we need to learn from the writings of Vyasa and the mood of narration of Sukadeva Goswami. So let us celebrate this entry into this very, very beautiful pastime, and the future speakers are going to highlight more on this. So these are a few thoughts which I wanted to share. Are there any quick questions or comments anybody has? Yes. Yes, Adikeshwar Prabhu.
In-depth study of all the Shastras. And the last line, what you said is the Jnanis I know it appears as if, to deprive them. So I was not understanding, Jnanis are also sincerely trying And by such type of episodes, he's creating a shield on them so that they will not experience the higher sweetness. At the same time, we hear that anyone who reads, Bhagavatam, he will understand. So I really, we also don't understand why, if the whole essence is about understanding Dhritarashtra's heart, which is of pure devotion, why all these details about three heads, and Twasta, and there's so many verses are there. That is not something to really we learn anything from that. And again, what you said about Jnani, so what strikes me is, why should Jnanis are deprived?
Okay. So, so I have become a big fan of this book, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, because so many nice details are pointed out. So, if you read that book, for example, in the first volume of that book, there's a nice narration of Krishna, our Narad Muni going to different places and trying to find out who's the greatest devotee is. So there he goes to again Dwaraka, and there you have personages like Padmavati, who's the mother of Kamsa, right, and so on. And Padmavati, when that samvad happens, Padmavati is blaming Nanda and Yashoda. You know what is her accusation? She says, why are you? Because Rohini, she's compassionate towards Oh, my poor Yashoda, how much she's suffering in separation. Are, what separation? She made my Kanha work for free. Every day she used to make my Krishna take Hare Krishna. So every day she used to make my Krishna work like a free labor, taking her cows into the forest. In fact, we should charge them some money for all the work she made my Krishna do. Right? So you see, the mood of Padmavati is very different, and Satyabhama, she also speaks something, right? So Narmada there understands, or even the Bhagavad explains that these people, even though they are eternal associates of Krishna, mind you, in Dwarkapuri, they are not qualified to enter into Vrindavan, into Goloka. Right? So, which means that the access to Goloka is not a cheap thing. Lakshmi Devi herself can't enter into Goloka. Right? So, when you understand this, these hurdles or these blocks are presented. So, these Gyanis, yes, they can go to Vaikuntha. Right? But if they go to Goloka, and this is what is going to happen. Right? So, when Krishna is stealing butter, immediately they'll go and start reminding Krishna, Krishna, you are the supreme personality of Godhead, you are the master of the three gunas, you are the source of everything, why are you stealing this butter? Right? They will ask all these illogical questions which destroys what should I say, distorts the sweetness of the flow of rasa. Right? So it is not that the Gyanis are deprived of liberation, but rather Ye yathamam prapadyante is therefore a very important line. They want to reciprocate with Krishna in a particular way, and they are given that particular access. Therefore, this is the beauty of books like Bhagavatam. If your lens is not clean, you will get stuck somewhere. Right? Only when your lens is clean, you will be able to steer past all these little challenges and obstacles and understand the essence. Right? So you will see Krishna's mercy in hell, which we saw last time. You will see Krishna's mercy in killing of Vritrasur, and you will see Krishna's mercy even in the charming pastimes of Vrindavan. Right? But for that is why the Gyanis, because they do not have that mood, right, of this Braja Bhakti, right? And and as a concluding point, which I missed, in that same Bhagavatam, it says that Gana of Vaikuntha, of Goloka Lila, that Dhyana and Gana of Goloka Lila, it may sound a little complicated, but he says that same can be done by Nam Sankirtan, which is exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us. So simply by Golokera Premathana Harinam Sankirtan, as our acharyas also explain, right? So this mood that somehow, can you imagine we bumped into something which we don't even know how powerful it is, right? At least now that we are somehow here, let us understand what great privilege we got stuck with. It's a good thing to get stuck with, right? But if you don't appreciate that, you never know. We may become an eternal associate of the Lord, but not in Goloka. So we need to still strive hard and understand the mood. And that is why sometimes, is a very personal point, but sometimes when devotees tend to derive lessons from Bhagavatam, and if those lessons are not in the line of the mood of Bhagavatam, we are doing a great disservice to the audience of Bhagavatam. Right? There are many levels of life lessons. Like one person, he wrote, ex-military general, he wrote Bhagavad Gita as a military strategy book and and he drew lot of military lessons out of Bhagavad Gita. Somebody will really draw a lot of managerial lessons from Bhagavatam. Somebody will draw a lot of parenting lessons from Bhagavatam, whatever. Because Bhagavatam is like a diamond. In different directions, different colors will come out of that crystal, right? But if you do not derive the lessons in line with the mood of Vyasa, Shuka, Narada, Rupa Goswami, right? Then we are doing a great disservice to our audience by getting them into a lot of unnecessary information. And you are even eventually even derailing their path towards Goloka by giving them some different moods. And that is why when we hear like Prabhupada and many of our Rupa Goswami also, he warns reading too many books also is it's offense to Bhakti Devi, meaning that don't absorb too many different moods. Each book is written with a particular mood. Ramayana is written with a particular mood. Mahabharata is written with a particular mood. Bhagavatam is written with a particular mood. So if you have not fully doused in the mood of Bhagavatam, reading other moods can be little dangerous for us, right? So like that. So that is why these little hurdles are there, so that not everyone can access the sweetness of Bhagavatam. All right. I hope I made that point clear. Thank you very much. We'll end this class now. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam